The night was supposed to be unforgettable. A sea of fans filled the stadium, every single one of them wearing glitter, sequins, or Taylor Swift merchandise. The air itself felt charged with electricity, the kind that only came from the anticipation of something extraordinary. Cameras were already live-streaming across the globe. The world was watching. Taylor stood backstage, clutching the microphone as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. Her team buzzed around her, stylists fixing stray hairs, assistants handing her water, producers reminding her of camera angles and timing. But Taylor wasn't listening. Not really. She took a deep breath and looked at the screen that showed the crowd chanting her name. They were louder than thunder, stronger than any storm. It should have been exhilarating. For most of her career, this was the dream. Sold-out stadiums, billions of streams, her name cemented in history. But instead of joy, a single thought pierced her mind like a knife. What if this is the last time? The music hit, the lights flared, and she walked on stage, every step echoing in her chest. The audience erupted. Taylor smiled, waved, and began to sing, her voice flawless, her movements effortless. To everyone else, it was magic. To her, it felt rehearsed, almost mechanical, like she was running through the motions of a life that no longer belonged to her. Halfway through the show, during a rare, quiet moment, she sat at the piano and spoke to the crowd. "You guys have given me everything," she said, her voice trembling more than she intended. "Every dream I've ever had, you've made it real. And I hope you'll always remember nights like this." The audience roared in approval, assuming it was just another heartfelt speech. But inside, Taylor felt the weight of something heavier: farewell. Backstage after the final encore, while confetti still floated through the air, she locked herself in her dressing room. Her manager pounded on the door, her friends cheered outside, but Taylor stared at her reflection in the mirror. Mascara smudged, hair damp with sweat, but eyes sharper than ever. "If I don't stop now, when will I?" she thought. "When I'm too tired to write. When my voice cracks for good. When I don't recognize myself anymore." The decision didn't come instantly, but the seed was planted. Within weeks, Taylor canceled press appearances. She postponed interviews, ignored calls from record labels, and shut off social media. The world noticed quickly. Rumors exploded. Is Taylor Swift burned out? Pop queen to take a break? Insiders claim Taylor considers retirement. Her fans panicked. Swifties flooded timelines with desperate pleas. "Don't leave us, Taylor. We need you. Please don't go." Hashtags trended worldwide, but Taylor remained silent. For the first time in 15 years, she didn't feel the need to explain herself. Instead, she disappeared. She packed a single suitcase, left her penthouse, and drove alone through the night until city lights gave way to quiet backroads. She arrived at a lake house tucked deep in Tennessee, the same place where she once scribbled lyrics as a teenager, dreaming of a future she now had and no longer wanted. The silence was jarring. No screaming fans, no photographers, no endless chatter from her team. Just the sound of water lapping against the dock and cicadas buzzing in the trees. Taylor spent her mornings walking barefoot in the grass, her afternoons strumming an acoustic guitar on the porch, and her nights writing pages of lyrics that no one was meant to hear. For the first time in years, she wasn't Taylor Swift, the global superstar. She was just Taylor, the girl who loved words, melodies, and stories. But even in that peace, doubt haunted her. Was she running away? Would people think she abandoned them? Was her career truly over? Some nights, she stared at the ceiling, heart racing, imagining the disappointment in her fans' eyes. Other nights, she slept better than she had in a decade. The breaking point came when a neighbor's little girl knocked on her door. She was maybe 10 years old, holding a messy notebook filled with lyrics. "I know who you are," the girl said shyly. "I wrote some songs. Will you tell me if they're any good?" Taylor hesitated, then invited her in. They sat on the porch, the girl reading her poems out loud with a trembling voice. They weren't polished, but they were real, raw feelings, unfiltered pain, honest hope. Taylor smiled because she saw herself in that little girl. "You don't need me to tell you they're good," Taylor said softly. "If you believe in them, that's enough. That's how it starts." That night, Taylor wrote something she hadn't written in years, a song not for the charts, not for the radio, but for herself. It was clumsy, messy, unpolished. And it was perfect. For For the first time since she stepped off the stadium stage, Taylor realized leaving might not mean ending. It might mean beginning again. Weeks turned into months, and the silence of the lake house became both a blessing and a curse. For Taylor, every morning began with the same ritual: coffee on the porch, notebook in her lap, and the guitar leaning against the railing. She wrote feverishly, filling pages with thoughts she had never dared to put into a song before. Not polished choruses or radio-friendly hooks, but raw fragments of her heart. Fears about being forgotten, confessions about loneliness, even questions about who she was without the stage lights. But as her creativity blossomed, the outside world began to rage. News outlets speculated daily, gossip shows dissected her every absence, and paparazzi swarmed Nashville in hopes of catching a glimpse of her. Headlines grew darker. Taylor Swift vanishes. Is this the end? Fans heartbroken as Swift cancels future projects. Some critics accused her of being selfish, of abandoning the millions who had lifted her to stardom. Others argued she had earned her rest. Her fans, loyal, passionate, relentless, created online campaigns begging her to return. Hashtags like #ComebackTaylor and #WeNeedYou trended for weeks. In New York, hundreds of fans even held candlelight vigils outside Madison Square Garden, holding signs that read, "Taylor, don't leave us." Videos of young fans crying into their phones spread across TikTok, and each time Taylor stumbled across one online, her chest tightened. One night, she received an unexpected call. It was from her mother, Andrea. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I know you're hiding. I know you're tired. But you need to ask yourself, are you leaving because you're done, or because you're afraid of what comes next?" Taylor sat in silence, staring at the dark water of the lake outside her window. Afraid. That was the word she hadn't admitted. Afraid of losing herself if she stayed. Afraid of disappointing everyone if she left. A week later, she went into town for the first time in months. Wearing a baseball cap and oversized hoodie, she thought no one would notice her. But as she stood in line at a small grocery store, a teenage boy recognized her. Instead of shouting or asking for a selfie, he simply said, "Your music got me through my parents' divorce. If you stop singing, I'll be okay, but I hope you never stop writing." Taylor thanked him quietly, tears stinging her eyes. His words echoed in her head long after she returned home. That night, she opened her old laptop and recorded a demo. No producers, no fancy equipment, just her voice, her guitar, and the creaking of the lake house floor beneath her feet. It was haunting, imperfect, but honest. She didn't plan to release it. She didn't plan for anyone to hear it. But when she finished, she realized she had just captured the purest version of herself. Meanwhile, the industry was unraveling in her absence. Record executives scrambled to keep her music alive on playlists. Radio stations replayed her old hits endlessly, and award shows referenced her in every broadcast, calling her the missing queen. Other artists spoke publicly, some urging her to come back, others admiring her courage to step away. Even the president joked in a press conference, "We may need Taylor Swift back to fix the economy." But Taylor stayed quiet. The only person she allowed into her world was that little neighbor girl, the one with the notebook full of lyrics. They spent afternoons writing songs together, Taylor teaching her how to shape verses, how to find melodies that carried meaning. The girl reminded her of herself at 12, curious, fearless, alive with possibility. In teaching her, Taylor began to heal her own wounds. Still, the question loomed, was this retreat temporary or permanent? Every time she thought about returning, her chest filled with dread. The noise, the pressure, the constant microscope of fame, it felt suffocating. And yet, every time she heard the wind whistle through the trees or the lake water ripple against the dock, melodies bloomed in her mind. She couldn't escape music. She never wanted to. One evening, while sitting by the fire, she scribbled a line that stopped her cold. Maybe leaving the stage isn't an ending. Maybe it's just another verse in the song. She read it aloud, and the words felt like truth. She wasn't walking away from music. She was walking towards something new, something freer, something more authentic. But the world wasn't ready to accept silence. Her fans needed closure. The industry needed answers. And deep down, Taylor knew she owed them, not an explanation, but a story. Her story. She closed her notebook, looked out at the lake, and whispered, If I come back, it will be on my terms, not theirs. At that moment, she didn't realize it, but she had already made her decision. By the time autumn painted the Tennessee woods in shades of fire and gold, Taylor had settled into her quiet rhythm. The world outside hadn't stopped buzzing about her disappearance, but within the walls of the lake house, time felt slower. She found herself writing more than ever, sometimes full songs, sometimes half-formed thoughts scribbled on napkins or the backs of grocery lists. Each piece carried a kind of honesty she hadn't felt in years. But the silence couldn't last forever. One crisp October morning, her manager, Scott, showed up at the lake house uninvited. He was exhausted, his voice edged with frustration. "Taylor, you can't just vanish like this. Do you know what's happening out there? The labels are losing their minds. Your fans, God, your fans are breaking down. They need answers." Taylor set down her coffee and shook her head calmly. "Scott, I don't owe anyone answers. I owe myself the truth. And right now, the truth is, I can't go back to that life. Not yet." He rubbed his temples. "You're walking away from billions. From everything you built." She looked him in the eye. "Maybe that's the point." Scott left frustrated, muttering about contracts and obligations, but Taylor didn't waver. Still, his words lingered. Could she really walk away permanently? Was she ready to sever ties with the empire she had created? One night, she dreamed of her younger self, the teenage girl with curly hair, sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, scribbling lyrics about heartbreak and hope. In the dream, that girl looked at her and asked, "Do you still do it for the love of it? Or just because the world expects you to?" Taylor woke in tears, the question echoing in her chest. The following week, she received a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter delivered to the lake house. It was from a fan, a woman in her 40s, who had battled cancer. She wrote about how Taylor's music had carried her through chemotherapy, how the lyrics had given her strength when she wanted to give up. The final line of the letter read, "Even if you never sing on stage again, please don't stop sharing your words with us. They're more than music, they're lifelines." Taylor held the letter for hours, rereading every line. For the first time, she felt a shift. Maybe returning didn't mean going back to the old way. Maybe it meant reinventing what being an artist could look like. In November, she quietly began recording at the lake house. No producers, no record executives, just a small setup she bought online. She played every instrument herself, layering raw acoustic guitar with whispered harmonies. The songs weren't stadium anthems. They were confessions, fragile and stripped down. And when she listened back to the first track, she felt something she hadn't in years: freedom. Word somehow leaked that she was working on new material. The internet exploded. Swift comeback album? Taylor recording in secret? Paparazzi camped outside the small-town grocery store, hoping for proof. But Taylor didn't confirm anything. She didn't deny it either. For once, she let the mystery play in her favor. Meanwhile, her family worried. Andrea called again, her voice soft. "Sweetheart, you know I'll support whatever you choose. But remember, the world isn't the enemy. You've inspired millions. Don't let fear turn into isolation." Taylor nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. She wasn't afraid of the world anymore. She was afraid of losing herself in it again. December arrived with its biting cold, and Taylor surprised even herself by attending a small Christmas event in town. She wore no makeup, no glamorous outfit, just a cozy sweater and jeans. When the local choir recognized her and asked if she'd sing one song, she hesitated. The crowd was tiny compared to the arenas she was used to, but when she finally sang, her voice filled the room with warmth. People cried. Children clapped. And Taylor realized something. Performing didn't have to mean spectacle. It could mean intimacy. It could mean connection. That night, she walked home through the snowy streets, her breath clouding in the air, and whispered to herself, "I think I'm ready." But ready for what? A return to stadiums? To the endless grind of fame? Or something entirely different? The answer would come sooner than she expected, because by New Year's Eve, an unfinished demo she had recorded in her lake house mysteriously leaked online. Fans discovered it, shared it, and within hours, it trended worldwide. The song wasn't polished. It was vulnerable, aching, imperfect. And yet, listeners declared it the most powerful thing she had ever written. Taylor stared at her phone in disbelief as messages flooded in. "This saved me. Please don't stop, Taylor. We don't need perfection. We just need you." Her hands shook as she closed her eyes. She had run from the stage, from the spotlight, from everything she thought defined her. But now she understood. She didn't have to choose between silence and spectacle. She could create on her own terms. The question wasn't whether she would return. The question was how. The leaked demo changed everything. By the first week of January, it had been streamed millions of times across unofficial platforms, dissected by critics and worshipped by fans. The song's rawness, its imperfection, only fueled its power. It wasn't a single crafted for charts. It was a confession whispered into the dark, and the world had never loved her more. Taylor sat at her kitchen table, coffee growing cold beside her, reading messages from fans. They didn't demand a tour or another stadium spectacle. They simply wanted her voice, her words, her truth. For the first time, she realized the stage wasn't the heart of her connection. It was the music itself. She called her team. "I'm not coming back the way they expect," she said firmly. "No stadium tours. No massive press rollout. I'm releasing this album quietly, independently. No compromises." Her manager groaned. "Taylor, that's insane. You're the biggest artist in the world. You can't just vanish into folk records and indie releases." She smiled softly. "Watch me." Over the next 2 months, she worked obsessively. The lake house became her studio, its walls lined with makeshift soundproofing. She recorded late into the night, layering vocals under candlelight, letting the crackle of the fireplace seep into the tracks. She invited no one, no producers, no co-writers. It was hers and hers alone. When the album was finished, she titled it Rebirth. It wasn't an announcement of retirement, nor a triumphant return. It was a declaration of survival, a reminder that she was more than the machine of fame. On release day, there was no traditional marketing campaign. She simply posted on her social media for the first time in months, "This is for me. This is for you." No noise, no spectacle, just music. Rebirth is out now. The internet exploded. Fans rushed to streaming platforms. Journalists scrambled to analyze lyrics, and critics declared it a masterpiece of vulnerability. The songs told the story of a woman who had been broken by her own success but found beauty in the silence afterward. They weren't just songs. They were chapters of her escape, her healing, her rediscovery. What shocked everyone most wasn't the music itself. It was the way she refused to return to the old cycle. No award shows, no late-night talk appearances. Instead, Taylor announced a small series of intimate performances in community theaters and tiny venues, no bigger than a few hundred seats. Tickets sold out instantly, not because fans wanted spectacle, but because they wanted closeness. At the first of these shows, she walked onto the stage wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. No dancers, no pyrotechnics, no glittering sets, just Taylor and her guitar. The audience held its breath as she strummed the opening chords. When she sang, her voice cracked with emotion, but no one cared. In fact, the imperfections made it feel more real. Halfway through the concert, she paused and looked at the crowd. "I thought I had to leave music to save myself," she confessed. "But I realized I just had to leave the noise. You don't need me to be perfect. You just need me to be honest. And I promise, I'll never stop giving you that." The room erupted with applause, tears streaming down faces. For many, it wasn't just a performance, it was a communion. Months later, as Rebirth climbed charts despite its unorthodox release, Taylor was asked in a rare interview whether she regretted stepping away. She smiled, thoughtful. "Walking off that stadium stage was the hardest decision of my life. But if I hadn't, I would have lost myself. Now, I get to do this on my terms. I'm not done. I'm just different." The interviewer pressed, "So, is Taylor Swift back?" Taylor laughed softly. "I never left. I just needed to remember why I started." And with that, she closed the chapter not of her career, but of the version of herself that the world once thought they owned. From then on, Taylor Swift wasn't just a superstar. She was proof that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, only to return stronger than ever. Her fans didn't just get their idol back. They got the truest version of her yet. And for Taylor, that was enough.